Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. In this episode, we interview Emma Viecelli and Kill or Be Killed artist Sean Phillips. Hello, welcome to episode 2 of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And we're your hosts.
Yay!
Here we go. Hope you enjoyed episode 1. It was been
awesome.
Very well received.
Yes.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and ensure you are subscribed so you can continue to hear our beautiful voices.
Our dulcet tones.
Over the airwaves of life.
Airwaves of life. I
Yeah.
quite like that.
Thank you.
That makes you sound like you're haunting them.
Well, have you looked at the pictures?
I can hear the voices. I
Have
can
a
hear
look
them
at
again.
the pictures. It's all about me.
Aww.
I know, problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been enjoying life since the last one. We've been interviewing
Enjoying life.
multiple
Oh, we've been having fun times.
fun times.
Fun times.
We'll talk about the interviews before the interview section.
Absolutely.
Before then, a bit of news has just come out.
Yes.
A Batgirl film is going to be created and
A standalone film.
I assume it's going to fit in the DC universe because it's Warner Brothers, so it will do. So
Yes.
they'll be able to bring her.
But wasn't the information then whipped off the internet again?
Was it?
Yeah.
Ah.
There could be a little bit of
So they're doing a
mystery around this.
Batgirl film, possibly
Yes, I think we need to cover ourselves with the possible.
written and directed by Joss Whedon, who obviously
Yes.
created
Buffy!
Buffy, but in a sense created the modern day superhero movie because he did the Avengers.
Yes.
And okay, we'd had the films before then, but the Avengers really went boom,
Mm-hmm.
and let's bring all the characters together, and it was fun.
Yes.
And it was fun, and all his work generally is of a just fun standard. Let's be honest.
Which is what it needs, I think.
The DC universe needs that.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it does.
It needs an injection of fun and possibly some better lighting.
I think Batgirl's a good film to look at that because you can do so much with that character. She's not got stuck in the darkness of Bruce Wayne.
As long as it doesn't go to the point where the ending bit.
What
If
do
they
you
do
mean?
the origin of Batgirl.
Well, there's again, depends on what Batgirl you're looking at, but
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
but yeah, I think brilliant. Looking forward to if it happens. Hopefully it does. Yeah, another TV based program we watch, which we're not going to generally talk about all the TV superhero shows and so forth. But I was looking forward to the Flash musical episode.
Yes.
Musical, to me, a musical episode.
Yeah.
As we looked at
Buffy.
Joss Whedon's Buffy
Yeah.
Vampires.
I noticed your segue into that.
Yeah, well, it could have been. I failed it. You'd expect music.
Yeah.
Well, you'd expect a lot of music.
Yeah.
More music than talking, almost.
Yes, you do in a musical.
A bit of talking to link the songs. Especially when you've only got an hour's programme.
Exactly, you could have fitted in a lot more.
There was three
than 3
songs that didn't really relate to the thing as such.
No.
And it was also... They had the story is a music maestro captures him and Supergirl, who's dragged over from the other dimension.
Yep.
And then entraps him in a world. So they've got no superpowers.
No.
So it wasn't anything special.
It was a cheap episode.
It wasn't a musical with superpowers. That would have been quite fun.
They could have twisted it into a lot more fun than it was.
They could have didn't even have to go in this dream world. They could have had everyone singing in the real world, working together to whatever.
Yeah, they could have gone down the comedic avenue.
It was a flop.
It was a bit.
And it's really sad because I forced you. You're not a fan.
No, I'm not a fan of
these.
Flash.
And I kind of forced you to watch
I
it.
think you lured me in with food.
Is that it?
You said, "We'll watch it over lunch," and I couldn't move then because I was eating.
So, and I wanted to talk about it, and get you all excited, and it's not really worked because even I wasn't excited. So that's a shame.
Yes.
But I'll continue watching Flash. I'm enjoying
on
it
your
still.
own whilst I have a bath.
Yeah. We said last time about having tattoos. We've got tattoos.
Yes, we have tattoos
I did
now.
a bit of report on the website, so have a look, comicartpodcast.uk. Pictures on there now.
Oh, is there a picture? Both of ours?
Yeah.
And mine? Oh.
So I've got Dredd, the David Aja, who retweeted it.
Yes,
He
you were ever
retweeted
so
it
pleased, weren't
from
you?
the the anniversary edition of 2000 AD.
Yeah.
So that's on there. It looks brilliant.
Yeah.
She's done a good job. Katrina at Voodoo Lounge.
Yes.
And Kendall.
Yes.
Just give them a shout out. And you got?
I got Totoro.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little chibi Totoro on my leg holding a dandelion clock.
And you said I kicked you, which I didn't.
You did. It was like day 3 of the healing process, which, as you know, and it's on my leg, so it's not in the best place. And you kicked me in the night, which was excruciating, and put my healing back a little bit.
There's no evidence, no
it
proof.
Was so sore.
Nothing at all.
But I'm having another 3, so it hasn't put
Can't
me
be
off.
that bad.
Yes,
more
Studio Ghibli inspired.
Please tell me what I should have. I'm still not sure.
Well, you were going down Karate Kid way.
Karate Kid, because it's an amazing film, my favourite film, but then I'm looking at Harley Quinn poster in front of me and I think that would look amazing as well.
The bombshell Harley
Quinn would look brilliant. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
I don't know. I
think you need to know, so you can't have one, because you can't do it on a whim.
No. I would love someone at the festival this year to design one for me. That would be amazing.
Oh, that's not a hint.
Hint.
Please
Anyone
design
out there
one for me.
that I like, as in it's got to be good. So, yeah, that could be a challenge. We'll see that we set some people at the festival.
Design my next tattoo.
Yes. We've also been to the Liverpool Comic Con, the NCM.
We did.
First time they've done it at Liverpool.
Yep.
They're spreading like a virus throughout the UK.
Like a plague.
What did you think?
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, we got there. There was a small queue. It wasn't too bad, was it, to get in?
We had only half an hour wait.
I was expecting more cosplay. There was some cool cosplay there.
There was some cool cosplay.
Yeah,
some people really done really well on it.
I suppose being the first year in a city, they're not going to be used to it in a sense, unless people are travelling.
It was fine if you wanted to buy Funko Pops.
There was a lot of Funko Pops for sale.
Yeah.
A lot of Funko Pops.
Yeah.
And not even...
There wasn't... It didn't seem to have a heart. The best part was obviously the comic people.
Yeah.
That was the best bit,
Very
wasn't
small,
it? Because it was only small. There was only, was it?
3 rows of tables,
weren't they?
Yeah.
Of 4 tables.
Yeah, so it wasn't many.
No, but that was the best bit because at least we could have a chat with people.
Yeah,
which is what we did.
Yeah, we saw 3 or 4 in particular.
Yes,
you've got some books there in front of you.
I
do. What's that lady girl's name? I can't read that.
Awkward
Bex, that's it. So on Twitter we're at Awkward Bex.
Mm-hmm.
You liked her stuff, didn't you?
I did like her stuff.
They had a lot of these. They had random bags, £5, where you just got a random selection. So we did a couple of them.
Yeah.
So we did that from Awkward Bex. She gave us that and to some other.
We've got some artwork and bits like that in there.
Then Accent Comics. We chatted to them.
UK. Yes, they were lovely.
Really friendly, actually, I must admit.
And we did another £5 bag off them.
We got three books.
Yeah. Well, we've got an entire book there that's worth $7.99.
Yeah, no, again, it was...
2 other ones.
It was interesting. I probably wouldn't have bought them separately, but at the 5, you're like, oh, let's just give it a shot.
Yeah, these were the Invisible... Missing the Invisible Man was fun. I enjoyed that one.
Well, the Western book we got as well, which was random, but that's all different stories, isn't it? Small stories, so...
Yeah.
So you chatted to that other girl, which we've got behind us, that I've forgotten the name of her.
Oh, I've forgotten her name. But I bought an artwork piece out from her.
Yeah, we'll find that and put a link to her stuff as well. And also we chatted to the guys from T-Pub.
Yep.
We've got a Twisted Dark book as well, which we've not read yet, but...
Oh, that was the first... Yeah, they kind of set you a challenge, don't they?
They do, to read the first story. It's a 3-4 page story.
Yeah.
And not be shocked.
I think Twisted Dark is a lot like Black Mirror.
It is Black Mirror of comic books.
It's the Black Mirror of comic books.
So that's written by Neil Gibson. They're usually at the festival as well, or they were last year anyway.
They were, yes.
So, have a nosy. So that was brilliant. We saw some celebs.
Flash Gordon. Gordon's alive.
Unfortunately, we didn't see Brian Blessed. That would have been amazing.
I don't think he would have, But we also saw Peter Davidson.
And
Rimmer.
I've forgotten the names.
I mean, Danny John Jules and Chris Barry.
That's the ones.
Andrew Lee Potts.
Andrew Lee. I still don't know who he is. Does anyone know who he is?
Stop it.
Nobody cares about this Andrew Lee Potts.
I did.
Yeah, I noticed. You're dribbling. And the guys from Starsky and Hutch.
Yes, but we didn't see those.
No, we don't really care.
No.
Well, they were taking pictures around the corner
with
when
the
we
car,
were
weren't they? Because they had the car. Because they had the cruiser from... The Land Cruiser from Star Wars, though, didn't they?
Yes, yeah.
So we saw that.
And then it was just shops.
It was just shops.
We bought a one of those random box things, which was a waste of money.
That was a waste of money, yeah. I bought cat ears.
You bought cat ears.
I wore them for the rest of the day.
You bought a tea set.
I did buy a Japanese tea set and a bowl.
So you can now be Japanese.
I'm now Japanese. That's official now.
That is it.
Yeah. Cat ears and tea set.
Yeah, and that was... It's a shame. I mean, I think... I'm not trying to advertise a festival that the Lakes, but that's what we've seen initially as our baseline, and then I know they're not the same things, but it just wasn't.
Like I said, there was no heart, there was no inclusion.
It was just a big shopping mall.
It was just like going to a big shop.
In a way.
I
mean, we'll do them again sometime, but we've got the Preston one
yes.
coming up. That's a much smaller scale, so very different thing, and I'm not expecting it.
Well, I've done a couple, and I must admit the littler ones can sometimes be the better ones.
Yeah. So we'll see. We've got Lancaster Comic Day coming up, which obviously is only in a library, but still.
We're going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh dear! Oh, quick! Let's get us all happy again.
Let's do some book reviews and opinions and thoughts.
Yes.
Sean Phillips, Kill or Be Killed.
Oh yes.
Volume 1. Now, I suppose
I'll stroke it gently.
In a way, we're a bit late to the party on this by a few months because everybody knows how good this is.
Yes. I'm
then
still
we read
stroking it.
We need to be good about it because Sean's on the show. No, we don't. I'm going to be 100% honest about this piece of tat. This book.
You can't say that.
This book is absolutely amazing.
It is amazing.
Really, I mean, Sean Phillips' artwork straight away, that stands out. But the artwork without the story and the placements to go with it is nothing. But the whole thing as a package, it just dragged me in.
Yep.
The first you read a few pages, and it essentially is just about a guy who tries to kill himself.
Yes. Do you want me to read the back for you?
Go on then.
Dylan is just an average depressed grad student until a failed suicide attempt changes everything he knows and propels him against his will into a life of vigilante justice.
Essentially, yeah. The story is this guy who's leading a rough life. Life's not going brilliantly for him.
No, it's all going a bit wrong.
A bit Pete Tong.
Yeah.
He decides to kill himself.
Yeah.
In the process, well, it doesn't work.
Well, he doesn't kill himself.
He jumps off a building and survives.
Yes. Gets caught in all the washing lines.
He's then set challenged by a demon, a devil, who knows what it is.
Yeah.
That if he doesn't kill someone every month, essentially a life for a life is the idea behind it. Then he will die. He's saying
that he's been cheated because he didn't die.
Yeah.
So now he has to repay.
And then it's just the story essentially of him dealing with this problem, learning to deal with this problem,
looking back at his childhood at certain points,
and fitting it in with his life and the girl he likes and so on and so forth.
Yes, because there's a love triangle going on there as well. Yeah,
and it just gets deeper and deeper as you read the story. There's something I mentioned to Sean in the interview about this would be ideal film, and I mean it. This would make an amazing film. It really would. I mean, it's not finished yet. Obviously, this is volume 1. The second lot of comics are coming out at the moment now, monthly. I think it is. I'm going to wait till it's collected again.
So because then you don't have to leave yourself... Well, it's on a cliffhanger.
It's already on a cliffhanger at the end, essentially, yeah. And it really... This, as well as all their other books, shows why Brubaker and Phillips have just become this force within the comics industry. Their work is amazing.
Yeah.
The art, the writing, it's very mature, it's very grown up, it's not the superhero bump.
Which is good.
But it's also got something about it that these people who have only read superhero stuff... It's enough to drag them in.
Yes, they could cross over quite easily into this. Yeah,
absolutely love it. Everything about it. There's nothing negative to say about this book whatsoever, apart from I didn't get it signed from Sean.
We should have taken it. Why
I felt cheeky. I wouldn't have felt cheeky.
That would have been a bit cheeky. Thanks for the cup of tea. Could you sign this as well? And these.
And these.
And while you're here, could you draw me a picture?
Yes, please. The other one we've read, MPH, which is written by Mark Millo and artist is Duncan Fegredo. Fegredo. I can never say his name.
You can't, can you?
Fegredo.
That's okay. Notice I'm making you say the names.
Yes.
So I always get them wrong.
So you don't get it. Yeah. Who's obviously well known for Hellboy. Mark Millo, who's done so many properties that have been turned into films, like Kingsman was one of them. What's the other big one? Kick-Ass. That's the other. So, and again, a bit like Kill or Be Killed, this could be a film.
Oh, this could, as well. Yeah.
I mean, this is a standalone story.
It is a standalone. It nicely wraps up.
Yeah.
In itself.
Do you want to give us a read on the back?
Oh, yeah.
The
hang
basic
on a
premise.
Growing up in Detroit, Roscoe and his friends know all about hard luck, but their fates take a different turn when they stumble upon a street drug called MPH. Little pills that give them the power of super speed and the opportunity of a lifetime.
So it's a bit like The Flash.
If Flash were a load of criminals.
Yes. So it's this young lad who has been caught.
Mm-hmm.
He's working for...
Well, he gets double crossed, doesn't he? He gets
Yeah.
put to jail.
He's into jail, and he gets given some drugs, the MPH drugs, which, like he says, give you super speed for 24 hours is the idea initially, isn't it? And it is super speed. It's quicker than the Flash.
Yeah.
It is just stupidly fast. So he escapes prison, and it's a story of how he deals with those drugs, what he does with those drugs.
But also, you have that past storyline coming through. Remember how it all starts in the 70s? Remember how it all starts?
Yeah, no, it does, yeah. With,
in 1986.
That someone in the past had these drugs as well.
Well, yes, yeah.
So it's yeah,
but
brilliant.
It goes full circle. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
It completely ties everything up and goes.
It does, and it finishes the story off. So
circle.
Again, the art is gorgeous. So this is what you read reading these. You just look at the art that compared to Sean Phillips. It is just a complete different style.
Yes.
It's gorgeous, though.
Yeah,
Absolutely gorgeous. And this is more your superhero style comics.
Yes.
In the style and the look of it, but it is brilliant. It is brilliant. It's like, I'm getting all excited.
You are, aren't you? Would you like me to mop your brow, dear, with cold flannel?
Go on then.
Okay.
Well, we'll change gears a bit.
All right.
Into something completely different.
Yes.
Snot Girl.
Here we go.
Volume 1
by
Brian Lee O'Malley.
Green
and
hair,
Leslie
don't
Hunt.
care. That's how she speaks now in my mind. Green hair, don't care.
I think it's set in America.
I know. But now I've made her into a Londoner.
What's on the back of this one?
Right, nothing.
Nothing at all.
Lottie Persson is a glamorous fashion blogger living her best life. At least that's what she wants you to think. The truth is, her allergies are out of control. Her friends are terrible people. Her boyfriend traded her for someone younger, and she may not have killed somebody. It's the first volume of Snot Girl, and things will never be the same. I like the fact that I've said this with a snotty nose.
Now, I admit I only got this because of Brian Lee O'Malley's name.
I'd heard about this one. It was intriguing.
It's intriguing. The art is funky. It really is.
Yeah.
It's not something I would normally grab, let's be honest.
No, because it comes across as a girly.
It does.
One.
It isn't.
No.
It is for anybody. The story of Lottie is basically, as I say, she's a fashion blogger, and it's her dealing with life, the fact that she's realising that her friends are all idiots.
Yeah.
No one cares about anybody in this group. Dealing with her allergies, which just cause her to...
well, she gets given...
snot.
A medicine, doesn't she?
She does, yeah.
Which we don't know if that's
helping
then affects the storyline as it goes on. Because I don't want to tell too much, do we?
Then she meets a friend.
Yep.
Who she feels is the best ideal friend.
Because she's so beautiful and cool. Yeah. She basically thinks that she's the right match for her.
Right person. Who then dies in an accident. And it's her dealing with that death, because she runs away from the scene.
Yep.
Dealing with the friends and everything that's going on around her. Dealing with her boyfriend running off with her old assistant.
Yes, yeah. Who she thinks is plain and boring compared to her.
Yeah, and just dealing with the problems within her life.
Yeah, but then it adds a...
Oh, there is.
We won't say anything. It will add a darker...
There's a lot more to it,
yes,
that's the thing.
It goes more deep than that. You're like, how you can't say anything because you don't want to give it away.
No, it goes dark.
It goes
probably
dark.
A good way of doing it.
But also she finds out a lot about herself because you don't really like her.
See,
I didn't empathise with her until it got near the end of this one.
I don't know why. I felt sorry for her.
Did you?
Because she's stuck in this world.
But it's a world of her own making.
It's a world of her own making, yeah. It's a world that, in a sense, a lot of youngsters are almost forced to. This want for fame, this drive to be somebody.
That every picture on the internet has to be a good one.
So, in a way, you feel for her because of that. She's only doing what a lot of the world is doing or trying to achieve in a way, and she is achieving success in what she's doing.
Yes.
Well, that's what you assume. It seems to be that she's her role as this fashion blogger. She is successful with. So you feel she's stuck in this world because she's good at being in this world. Yeah,
but all the effort she puts in to carry on being in that world.
I suppose the only downside, you look at it, the way she treats her assistants, unpaid assistants, does show she's a bit of up her own backside.
Oh, she's definitely that.
Yeah. But no, I really enjoyed it, I must admit. And again, once Volume 2 comes out, I'm going to be grabbing it.
Yes.
And I'm proud to walk around with Snot Girl in my hand. So, 3 books
something
there.
Completely different. It's definitely worth a look at.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Brian O'Malley did Scott Pilgrim. He was at the festival last year as well. 3 books to read if you've not read any of them. Or go and have a look.
Yeah, completely different. And yeah.
If you want some other reviews, look on Page 45 website as well.
Yep.
Obviously, they do weekly reviews. Go and have a nosy at that. There's no sort of films we watched Kong Skull Island. We're not going to discuss that because it's comic. If you want to hear more about that, listen to the House of Geek episode 50. But we've also been watching Some. You've
done it again.
Some Gamma Ray.
No,
Why am I saying Some Gamma Ray?
Yes, like I told you.
Samurai
Gourmet
on Netflix.
Yes.
Based on a manga.
Yep.
Which we don't seem to be able to get over here in this country.
No, it's not being translated into English, is it?
Now, I would play a trailer here, but it'd just be full of Japanese
talking,
and
which
some
is
music.
Fine.
It won't give the idea of what the show. So what is this show about? Bear in mind, you introduced me to it, so you can explain it.
I was quite surprised because I am an avid watcher of any Korean, Chinese, Japanese.
Every bit of rubbish you can find.
Everything I can get my hands on. And this one is you've got a 60-year-old corporate man, and he's just retired. He doesn't quite know what to do with himself anymore, and his wife kicks him out.
His wife doesn't, get out every day.
Go out. I mean, she got him walking at one point. And it's just his little adventures to find something to eat, really, isn't it?
Well, it's not just to find it, he just goes and does different things, doesn't he? But in the process, he always has lunch.
Yeah, because he went and was an extra on a film.
Yeah.
But he did that to get the lunch.
He did, to get the lunch, yeah.
And he went to an Italian restaurant last night, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because he was walking and he kind of stumbled across it.
Mm-hmm.
Now he goes into these places and then something happens.
It's a situation.
Yes, a little situation where he should become assertive in. And in these times, it's almost like a flashback to samurai times.
He seems to have a samurai companion in his mind, essentially.
And the same situation plays out, but in ancient Japan. And the samurai is always very and sorts out whatever.
Shows what he should do
within reason.
Without a sword.
And then it goes back to normal everyday
and to see how he deals with it.
Yes, and sometimes he takes the samurai way, and sometimes it all just goes wrong. But the food. I mean, we've started trying to be more healthy, haven't we?
Because of it.
Because of watching the food and watching his face.
He is such a likeable gentleman, I'm going to call him, because he is a gentleman.
Yeah.
He's so friendly, so caring about his situation. He just wants to enjoy himself.
Yes.
I don't know, sometimes you don't see me do it. Sometimes you do sort of get a bit up a little bit because you're just watching... Shut up. You're just watching this guy just enjoy himself.
Yes. And it comes across very well.
Savouring the food. But I think a lot of it is about him looking to his past.
Yes.
And I think that's what brings you to it.
But also he looks at past but then lives in the now. He doesn't look to the future. He lives now.
Yes. Yeah. And again, it is just food porn. That's another way of looking at it, because they show them cooking the food, slowly plating it out, and it's just that Japanese food. It just looks amazing.
Oh, it's just beautiful, isn't it? Which is why now I have rice wine vinegar and things in the cupboard.
We also, I think, enjoy the culture of the Japanese, and I'm sure it's not like this all the time, but just the friendliness and the respect when you're being served by a waitress or a waiter.
The manners.
The man, that's the best word, I suppose. It's such a different culture.
But
I want to go and have.
But it's just, I mean, they're only 20 minutes long, roughly. It's just 20 minutes of complete and utter oasis of calm in everyday life, and I hope it follows the comic closely. I expect it does.
Yeah, it probably does. I don't know. We'll probably never know.
No,
sadly.
Yeah.
Unless somebody knows where I can get a copy, but I don't think it's been translated either.
No. But it would be quite nice just to have the copy.
Yeah, you'd be able to understand the art in it. Yeah, I shouldn't like it.
No, it's definitely not up your street at all.
But I do.
Yeah, because sometimes you just need a bit of calm.
I really do. So check that out on. Forget Netflix Defenders and Iron Fist. It's not meant to be very good. None of that. Don't watch any of that.
No.
Watch Samurai. I couldn't even say it wrong properly then.
Samurai Gourmet.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, so we've got some interviews coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Chris is taking a few months off due to commitments with work at the moment.
Yep.
But we have got Mike and Pete.
Yes.
Pete Taylor doing his first segment for the show.
Uh-huh.
We've got an interview with Emma Viecelli.
Oh,
which is
she's
lovely.
lovely.
She's such a nice
She's my new
person
best
to chat
friend.
to. Really enjoyed chatting to Emma. We did it about a month ago now.
Yeah.
We did this early, but yeah, really good chat with Emma. I hope to get her back on maybe at the festival or something.
Oh, that'd be good.
For a brief chat, with fingers crossed. And then we went to visit Sean.
He's my new best friend too.
At his house, which was really made us feel so welcome. It made us feel really welcome.
Made us tea.
Went up to his studio, which was
just heaven.
Just books, and bottles, books.
I just want to live in his studio.
Under his desk.
Under his desk. I'll be like a hobbit.
You just want what he's drawing on his computer.
I want that too. It's like, I'll just stay here, that's fine.
But the interview itself, again, really informative. He really talks about a lot, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was really enjoyable to do.
It was lovely.
To listen to, so hope you enjoy.
Bit nervous because it's face-to-face interviews.
Yeah, first sort of face-to-face with somebody who is just brilliant at what he does.
It's like a superstar.
It just shows in the work that he loves what he does, and he's just really good at it. So have a listen to that, and we'll come back afterwards with some festival news.
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike's Mutterings. This episode I wanted to talk about something that's going to be very timely. It's the story of a 1989 manga comic called Kokatu Kidotai, or Mobile Armoured Riot Police. But I'm guessing that the majority of people out there will know it today as Ghost in the Shell. The new film is due out in a few days from when I'm recording this, so I'm recording it before I see the film, and there's a good reason for that. Back in 2003, I got hold of a copy of the Dark Horse compilation version of the original comic book series, but it was in the westernised form, which meant it was fully translated, which is always handy, and it reads left to right. I was going through a phase of both sort of cyberpunk stuff, reading William Gibson and Bruce Sterling, but I was also discovering manga really for the first time. Back then I was reading a lot of the classic stuff from the 90s, like Crying Freedom and Akira, and then Appleseed, which is kind of how I got introduced to the writer and artist of Ghost in the Shell, Masamune Shirow. There wasn't a lot out that was easily accessible at those times, so those are probably the biggest things that I was reading back then. Ghost in the Shell was pure cyberpunk for me, really. It's a story following Section 9, which is a paramilitary sort of organisation fighting terrorists, led by the eponymous Major Motoko Kusanagi. And she's a kind of a cyborg housing a cybernetic brain. It does go into a lot of sort of like the technicalities of cybernetics and neural networks and AI, and even delves into the philosophy of, I suppose, what the consciousness or what they call the ghost is in all of this. But it should be noted that by about page 5, there's already briefcases that turn into assault weapons, and by page 7, there's a guy exploding from an internal HE shell that he had embedded. Pretty much violence and action all the way through. It's a seriously sort of speedy story. One of the things that I really like about it as well is that the artist actually puts notes in the marginalia, and there's a classic one which is kind of driving along, and he just says, just hidden in the bottom of the page, it just says, they do this and they do that, I couldn't be bothered to draw it. And there's a lot of the sort of breaking the barriers of comics in it. It's very scratchy artwork, and it's very 90s manga. And with that, there is a lot of sex with the violence as well. I think my copy was probably the last published uncensored. You can obviously get it still, but even though it says uncensored, I think there is still a single page that they've taken out, and it really doesn't add anything to the story either. But my copy, I think, has an 18 plus rating and a parental advisory, and I'm guessing with the page taken out, that's gone down to what they all seem to come with now, which is mature audience 15 plus. But it's a good read, and I guess that's what leads us on to what happened next with the franchise. in '95 they did the anime film of it, and it changed a lot. The artwork was a lot more solid and stylized, and really what looks like mainstream manga now. The action sequences really came alive with it, and some of the technology like the thermo-optical suit and that kind of stuff. But they also fleshed out the other characters. Batu plays a big part in it as well, and he's actually got a character now. And they did change the Major a lot. She became more serious, and they got rid of a lot of the 80s sort of hairstyles and shoulder pads, and it looked a lot sleeker and lots more modern. And then in 2002 they rebooted the series again, but this time with an actual anime TV series called Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. Once again, changes were made, things became more stylised, there was a lot more background to the setting, and again that led to more and more series. And then finally, I think the last series was Arise Alternative Architecture. At this point, it's a pretty polished vision of a post-cyberpunk future, solid storyline, and properly developed characters throughout. And I think this is what they're basing the actual story of the film on, that's coming out this month. I guess in summary, it's been a great franchise, and it's been great to actually follow it from the beginning. And again, it's just evolving over and over, and I think it's just going to be superb. I know there's going to be changes made to the film. I know that they're going to change characters, they're going to change the storyline they'll be following from Arise. But I know I'm going to be happy with that. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be complaining about they didn't do this, they didn't do that. The title credits were almost correct, but they missed out this. That really doesn't bother me, because I want something to improve, and I really think this will. I guess I need to quickly nod to the fact that there was a lot of debate about Scarlett Johansson getting cast as the Major. I'm not going to go into that. You can Google that. There's plenty of debates online for you to watch. But again, it's one of those things with manga and anime. It's a cultural thing, and a lot of the time people are drawn ambiguously, with westernized features, even if they're not Western. So I think it's a hard call to make, but I'm looking forward to the film. I'm glad I recorded this before I saw it. I'm hoping Ian and Nikki are going to do a full review, because I'm dying to know what they think. So I guess we'll see next time. Thanks, everyone.
We have Emma Viecelli on the show. Thank you for coming on. That is right, isn't it?
That is absolutely right, yep.
Can I just say I got it right on the first time on the first podcast?
You are amongst the elite.
So Emma, you've done quite a catalogue now building up. But what got you into comics originally?
Originally, I like reading them. Obviously, probably the first thing I fell for really hard was Dylan Dog over in Italy, because I spent a lot of time in Italy as a kid. My family's over there, and Bonelli comics were they were everywhere. I mean, comics were everywhere there anyway, and just all mixed up as well. So you didn't really get such a distinction between, this is this type of comic and this is this type of comic. You would just go to the corner shop and buy comics. Dylan Dog early on. Otherwise, just X-Men, all the usual thing, all the usual answers people give. I really love. Probably the first time. So X-Men at the point when I was getting into it still felt more like a young person's comic, I guess. It wasn't as mature and deep as it is now. So I suppose probably when I think of the first comic that got me into things as an adult reading comics was probably Preacher. Yes, that's probably the first time I went, whoa, this is quite grown up.
Yeah.
That's quite a jump.
That is a big jump.
Garfield, Preacher.
How did you find, what age were you when you were growing up in the UK? How did you find finding comics in the UK? Because certainly I found it as a struggle as a youngster finding.
Well, I was very lucky, actually, in that I lived, at the time, I'm an Essex girl, and I lived in a town called Wickford, and we had Basildon was very close by, the really classy parts of Essex. And we had this wonderful little comic shop, actually, in Basildon, and myself and my friend Dan would do a sort of weekly pilgrimage we'd ride our bikes over to Basel. We'd go, it sounds so sick, in the morning, we'd ride over past a place, I can't remember what the farm was called now. Is it Marsh Farm or something like that? There was a farm that was en route. So we would cycle in the summer to the farm. We'd stop there, pick some strawberries, get paid for strawberry picking, and then continue cycling on to Basildon to buy comics and magic cards. That was our...
Oh, not magic cards. Oh, dear.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So actually we were very lucky with that shop, and it was a chap called John was running it, so he had quite good varied stock in there. And then I think, I can't remember what age I was at school when someone lent me Ranma Half by Rubin Takahashi, and I think the way I always talk about my feelings towards comics is there were loads of comics I was reading, and I loved reading comics, and then I think when I read Ranma, it was the first time that I wanted to make comics. That was the difference. It was the difference between going, I love reading this, and then reading something and going, wait, I want to try this, because it felt so different.
So were you, I assume you were good at art throughout school then, initially, or is it something that you've worked on?
I don't know, not really, no, I don't think so. I mean, I say quit, I didn't quit, it doesn't work that way at school, but I didn't take art GCSE actually, because my school, the way it worked was that I was in double sciences, which obviously was super useful for my life, and so because of that, the way it worked back then was, we've decided you should be in extra sciences, so you only get to choose 2 art subjects out of drama, music and art. And it was a really difficult, in fact I think it might have been only 1 at the time, because the only reason I did my music is because we took our lunchtimes. We asked if we could do lunchtimes to do it. So it wasn't, the option wasn't there to keep up all the creative bits really, so I didn't really do art at school. I mean, I used to draw all the time. I loved, it wasn't just comics, I was playing video games and watching cartoons, and so I doodled all the time. I don't think I was particularly good at it. It wasn't something I thought I didn't think it was going to be a job, it was pretty... but there was obviously a point, I mean, funny enough, a couple of years ago, I was talking with some friends, and we'd been moving out of a house, and we found loads of old sketchbooks, so it was a bit of a treasure trove, and we were laughing at all our old stuff and going, oh, God, it was so bad. And there was one sketchbook that had a load of pages, obviously when I was deep in my Clamp 1999 phase, and it was mostly me drawing pictures of Clamp characters for the most part, and then it would have a little box next to it saying character design accepted, yes or no. And I was so obviously on some level that I'd even forgotten. I must have dreamed of, wouldn't it be great if I was doing this for a job, and quite sadly pretended I was. So tragic. So whether I was good at it, I don't know, but I enjoyed it.
So your first book was Dragonair, is that right? Am I thinking right there?
Yes, that was the first thing, in terms of, that was independent through Sweat Drop, because the Dragonair that's out now is actually the Reborn edition. So that was the one where a few years back now I went back and I re-scripted, redrew, everything, the first 6 issues or so of it. So the original, I don't know if any copies of that still exist, but that was the very first thing.
So how did that feel, getting something out in print?
I can't tell you how excited I was. That first, it was either Minami or Iacon, one of the anime cons. And it was the first time I joined up with Sweat Drop, and I'd done this single issue, which, I mean, it was awful, really, in retrospect. Terrible. But it was, 20-page folded, stapled, and it was the most exciting thing I'd ever seen in my life. I just didn't want to take it out of my bag. I didn't care that it wasn't from a proper, inverted commas, proper publisher. Because back then, I think Sweat Drop, we were literally just a comic circle. We hadn't registered as a publisher then. So it was just a completely independent, folded, stapled comic, but it was the most precious thing in the world to me. And I was just like, oh, my work printed on paper. It was so exciting. And I did about, I guess I did 6 single issues with them, and then did a compilation, of the old version, which I think I've burned every copy of that now, hopefully. and then yes, revisited it a few years back when I thought it'd be interesting to just do a definitive version of it. So it means a lot to me. It's still my first baby.
You went on to do Shakespeare as well in manga, which is intriguing. Obviously, we've not seen that yet, have we? We're on to search.
Oh, really?
Did you find that challenging in any way, or?
Well, it was a really interesting time in my life, actually, because by that point, so that was 2000, I would have been offered the contract in 2006. So, I mean, they're going back a bit now. I'm super proud of doing them, but I do tend to pick up Hamlet now and go, oh God, I wish I could redraw this. So at the time I was working for a video game company and was quite enjoying, so I had quite a good full-time job that I really enjoyed, and I can remember the angst of we heard that a company was doing Shakespeare, and I trained in Shakespeare. I did it as English literature, I did it as an actress. I hadn't ever considered drawing it. So when the option came up, and there was I think Paul Gravett had put our names in touch with the publisher who was doing it, who obviously turned out to be a self-made hero, but they were brand new at the time. And so pitched this book, not thinking really it was going to happen. It was just a really intriguing challenge to do some sample pages of Shakespeare in comic form, got the job, and then it was a real... I didn't want to give up my day job. I was too terrified of the idea of going freelance because it just hadn't really occurred to me. So I thought, oh no, I'll do both, which was so stupid. It was a 200-page book, and the end result of it was that I gave myself pneumonia, so I ended up getting signed off of work anyway, and I finished Hamlet basically breathing into an oxygen mask. It was an interesting time in my life. But I always say, going back, I think things happen for a reason, and I don't think, if I hadn't got ill, I don't think I would have had the courage to leave my day job. I think the fact that I got signed off and they were very supportive about it at the time, I think that's the only reason. And of course, with any freelancing career, it is terrifying, but actually it's only once you can't really dip your toe. Once I realised, right, this is it, I guess this is my job now, then options started opening, but they don't while you're full-time working, you're not looking for it,
No, of course. So you moved on, you've done Doctor Who very recently.
Uh-huh.
How was it feeling having to draw sort of an established character as opposed to being able to create your own imagery in say, Shakespeare or something, is it?
Yeah, there's different bonuses to every different type of work you approach, really. I mean, I had a few years of working on... So I was doing the Vampire Academy series for Penguin Books, which was lovely because it was novels that I adored, and I was getting to basically visualise those characters. So that was sort of... existing characters but my own stamp on them. But then I also did stuff like My Little Pony, which was so to the you have to do it exactly.
It's scary how many men love My Little Pony as well. It's weird.
Unfortunately I did it before it was the cool My Little Pony. It wasn't Friendship is Magic, it was the old My Little Pony. So some jobs you've got freedom, some jobs it's complete style guide. When it came this last year, I've had an amazing year work-wise, really, much as the rest of the world let's not talk about, but work-wise it's been a really good year. And because I think partly that's because I've really been able to play about with lots of different properties. And with Doctor Who, I think the thing that made me happiest on it is there were a few people saying, well, it must be quite hard because McGann isn't really a visual Doctor, we've only got the one film. But I'd been listening to the audios for years, and for me, I kind of had a vision of the Doctor in my head, that although of course it was Paul McGann, it wasn't Paul McGann, because it was this character rather than him being him. And so I did say early on to them, so, I'll be completely honest, I'm not a portrait artist. I wouldn't like to compromise comicking by trying to emulate. I mean, some people are amazing and are able to completely capture how a person looks and keep it fluid and keep it, keep the comicking in place. And then other times you see where someone's worked so hard to photo reference a person's face that they lose the emotion behind it. And I know that's what would happen with me. I could probably try and get a likeness, but I would lose any of the fluidity of my comics, which I didn't really want to do. So luckily Titan were totally on board with that, and they were like, so long as we can tell it's the Eighth Doctor. And of course it was influenced by Paul McGann because he is the Eighth Doctor. But I think some of the best comments I was getting from friends of mine, especially people like Paul Cornell, who obviously, as well as being a friend, I massively respect as a Doctor Who bod as well. And he said that he just thought the mannerisms and the gestures of the character was there. And I said, well, that's great, because that's what I wanted to get, really. But yeah, I had so much fun on it, and George Mann and I are hoping we're going to get to return to it at some point.
So who is your favourite Doctor then?
Well, the Eighth.
ignoring your work, just looking at the TVs or something.
He's got floppy hair and a frock coat. Well, obviously we didn't do the frock coat version. But yeah, it was quite a while ago now when Steve White, who was at Titan at the time, he'd said to me, if you got to draw any Doctor, which one would it be? And I don't know what he was expecting me to say, but when I said the Eighth, he was a bit like, really? Oh, okay. I think they hadn't done so much in the comics with 8. So
well, we'd love to see him come back. We've discussed this, haven't we? We'd love to see him just do a series of his own. That'd be amazing.
Oh, God, I know. Yeah. I know. Well, I think with obviously massive respect to poor John Hurt, but I think I was amongst the camp who was so gutted that they didn't just continue through to the War Doctor with Paul McGann. I think he would have been amazing. He's just so
They could
versatile.
still do it. That's the thing with Doctor. They could still do it.
Could still do it.
Oh, please.
Oh, hear us, gods of Doctor Who. I mean, at this stage, I'd imagine it would be quite uncomfortable even for him, though. I mean, it would be a bit weird with John Hurt passing. I don't know, a bit strange.
Yeah.
I've also been doing Back to the Future as well.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Because
you were so excited.
Oh, that was just. I mean, that property in its own right, it's just, yeah.
Oh, I know. So honestly, this year has just been, I keep saying to people, my tick boxes of things I grew up with that I loved, that I could never have dreamed I would touch with a bard pile, let alone work on them. But yeah, Eighth Doctor, Doctor Who, but Eighth Doctor specifically, love. Yeah. Gem, love. Back to the Future, love. Supergirl, love. And I've literally been able to do all, I don't think there's many things left from my childhood that I haven't now drawn, I'm like, they're amazing. When I get my Gambit miniseries, I'll be complete. But yeah, Back to the Future is amazing, especially because it was working with, so John Barber was my editor on Gem, and we got on really well then, and then he was moving on to writing Back to the Future with Bob Gale, and I mean, that was the amazing thing. I was like, but that's Bob Gale, he wrote the films, oh my God. And so yeah, it was a pair of them writing, so it felt, I think having Bob on board gives it that sort of legit aspect to it. And it was just lovely working with John. And yeah, I was bloody Back to the Future. And again, for me, it was ideal because they said the unusual thing with the comics is they've got the rights, obviously, to the stories and the characters and everything. They don't have the rights to the characters, to the actors' likenesses. They've got the characters, but not the actors. Which for me was absolutely perfect because they said we just want you to basically draw Marty and Doc, but not the actors.
It's very clear who they are, though, in the imagery. It's so obvious.
Good.
Yeah, no, it's so obvious who it stands out very clearly.
Oh, well, they're such amazing, iconic characters, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just, so much fun. And I mean, I'm not like a lot of artists. I'm not really a car person. I'm a bit. I mean, some artists are fantastic at cars. Damn you, Sean Murphy. But I go a bit. Oh no, I'm going to draw a car. I had no idea how much I was going to enjoy drawing the DeLorean. Like that's not a car. That's the DeLorean.
It's almost a spaceship in a way, isn't it? In a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the way the guys script it, the time machine itself, pretty much, it's like it's a character in the story. It's just as important. The detail that would be paid when notes would come back of like, oh, we need to make sure that bit's just, it was really important how the car fit into things and when it had the right. I don't know. It was just, it was as important as the characters because it kind of is a big character in that series.
No,
really.
it is. No, it is. Sort of a hard question. Do you find has you found it hard being a woman working within the industry? Do you think it's been harder for you than it would be for a man, or is it purely down to talent?
It's always it's probably still an important question. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
I always have to go from my personal experience. I think, and on personal experience, no, I haven't found it harder. But then I've never been a man, so I don't know. Honestly,
it's so hard being a man. You don't want to do
it. There's all sorts of sarcastic answers I will often give to that question, but in this case we're having a nice chat and we've had, I won't. You didn't start on it. If it starts on that, then I'm a bit like, but there is a problem. That of course I see that. I mean, I think it's a dangerous route to go down to assume, I didn't get that because I'm a woman, because that implies like, well, what do I think I'm better than the guys doing it? I wouldn't want to get a job purely because I'm a woman. I want to feel like I've earned a job. On the flip side, we've seen enough cases where we know, there's probably some kind of glass ceiling in a way, but I don't think it's necessarily. Again, I kind of have to talk carefully because it's my own personal experience. But in my experience within the industry, I've not seen it like from the inside of the industry, because nearly every job I've worked on has had females involved, but a lot of them have been all female teams. I've never looked around and gone, why are there no women working here with me? Because I've worked with a lot of women in comics. I've also worked with a lot of great guys who've been incredibly supportive and never implied that they think any less of me because I'm a woman. On the flip side, you do tend to see a lot of, in these days, you'll see a lot of women put on guest, myself included, you go on as a guest on something. You'll do like 5 pages here, 5 pages there. And it's rarer for the women who guest on things to then be offered an ongoing. I mean, I know I've jumped around between things, but that could well be because I'm not suited for it. I don't think it's necessarily because I'm a woman. But there are, you can't ignore there are problems. And I think it's great that people are being vocal about stuff. And I think we're being, as an industry, actually comics is working quite hard, I think. I speak to friends who are working in other industries, especially the games industry, and comics is actually quite a long way ahead of other industries. But that doesn't mean we've done. You know, there's still projects in the works. There's an amazing thing, actually. Shelley Bond got in touch recently. She's putting together something called Femme Magnifique, which is going to be an incredible hardback anthology. It's like 30 stories all about women historically or currently who just sort of changed the world or broken barriers. So that's going to be worth looking out for in that subject. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, yes. So I think within the industry, and I don't mean within the whole industry, but in the angles I've been in, I've not seen as much of a problem as I have seen, unfortunately, on the other side of the industry. I think most of the times I've come up against problems, or when those problems have fed back into the industry, it's come from a retail or consumer level, more than editors or publishers. I think we are one industry, and when I talk about the comics industry, I include in that readers, retailers, conventions, as much as the publishing element. And as a unit, as a full community, it's something we need to fix. I don't think it can be fixed just by publishers putting more women on projects or putting more women leading titles, because if the readers don't pick those titles up, or the shops don't stock them because the readers aren't picking those titles up, and then those women aren't invited to conventions because the readers aren't picking those titles up, that's as much a problem. Sorry, I'm ranting now.
No, it's right. I mean, the only reason I asked, to be honest, we're obviously learning about, I've read comics and so forth, and it's never even come into my mind whether it's male or female drawing. It's just art.
Great.
And so as we're looking into doing these podcasts, we're looking up and seeing that there is questions and issues out there. And so that's why I'm asking a question. Sort of, it's odd in a way. It feels weird that of all the industries, the comics is almost a faceless. You know, we don't see the person drawing.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't make a difference. So it's very weird in a way.
It's so interesting, and sometimes I think it's good to be vocal about it, and other times I worry that people exactly like yourself who are coming into the industry without any of those preconceptions, they're just going, oh, hey, these are comics, these are great, I don't really mind what gender the creators are. And then the moment they read and they see these arguments, then they're turned onto it. And so sometimes I think, are we kind of perpetuating this conversation for people who wouldn't necessarily have been aware of it being an issue? Are we kind of, I don't know, it's difficult. But then, I mean, I remember a few years back at the Lakes, actually, funny enough, I'm not going to name names, and it's not never ever done with any maliciousness, but there was someone who'd been taking a bunch of photos, and it went up as an exhibition of, comic creators, and it was commented at the time that it was literally just picture upon picture of white middle-aged men. It was the most varied it might be is it might be a slightly younger white man or one with a shorter beard, and they're all wonderful white men, they're fabulous, and a lot of them are my friends, so it's not to take them down, but it is quite telling sometimes. It's only when you see it displayed like that and you think, wow, if you were going to name, I mean, you guys are probably the same as me if you're coming in from that angle. If you were going to name top creators, I'm sure there'd be women in there. But there are still corners of the industry. And again, I mean more on a readership, more on a consumer level, who if you ask them to name their top 10, they're probably going to go to male names purely because those male names are more visible. It's interesting. I think things are getting better all the time. We're in a fairly good place. So that it's good to keep the discussions going. But, we do have to be wary of maybe teaching new readers that there are problems when they wouldn't have seen them before.
Going on to the festival itself, you're a patron of the festival.
I am.
What does that mean exactly?
Largely it means I get to feel quite special, and I certainly did after last year's event. I was so impressed with what Julie had done, but I think basically it means that Julie's a powerhouse. Well, her and Carol, they're incredible, the work they do. But she'll run things by us, so that the patrons will get me emails every now and then with sort of, do you think this is a good idea, maybe this could work, could you throw in some suggestions for this? Often by the time you put in a suggestion, she's already off and she's done something because she's so efficient.
It's
so
very
sometimes
hard to
you
pin
put
her down.
Yeah. Meetings. What? When? Next
she's
year.
amazing. So your suggestion will end up being in 2 years' time. But yeah, she's amazing. So largely, we get to have input on the event, give some feedback on the event. It's interesting because we're quite a varied group, even within the patrons, we're quite varied, and there's I don't think anyone would disagree with the fact within the group we're coming from very different angles of the industry in places as well. So we have some really fascinating discussions even between the patrons, going back to what we were just saying before of like where we're sitting and how we look at the industry. But that makes it really interesting because we get really good discussion out of it. We also last year we got to, between us, help nominate Charlie Adlard to be laureate. So that was really exciting. That was quite a big deal, This is a big thing. Mostly just sort of we're showing that we support the event and we get to input on decisions, and it's sort of generally assumed we're going to be there and do some work over the weekend. So it's a new thing for me. I've not really been a patron of anything before. But I think what she's done with it is amazing. I think to look at it and remember that it's only been going for a few years is quite incredible, actually.
So that means we can assume you'll be there this year then?
Yes, I will be there, I don't know yet what I'm doing. As she was saying, we probably need to come up with some different angles on things to keep it fresh. I can't keep going up and doing the same workshops. I need to...
My youngest will be ever so pleased though, because he absolutely loves your work.
Oh, that's awesome. How old is he?
He is 10.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, has he checked out Alex Rider?
No, not yet. We've got to do that though.
Yeah, I
think he'll really like those. Yeah.
Oh, they're great. They're really great books. I only worked on Scorpio in terms of the graphic novel adaptation. There's a bunch of them before that are really cool as well to look at. And then me and Kate Brown jumped in on Scorpio. But they're great stories. Really good.
Yeah.
Right, final question for you then. Is there a book or story in another medium that you would like to adapt to comic form, bearing in mind you've done Shakespeare and Back to the Future and Doctor Who, so yeah.
Yeah, many. There are many. If life was longer, there's so many. I don't even know where to start. It's difficult actually that you're asking that question now because there's stuff going on at the moment that's massively NDA that might not ever come to light, but if it does, then you'll be able to go, that's what she would have answered. But unfortunately, I can't really. It's that horrible thing we can't really talk about at the moment. But there's so much rich material out there. The problem is, as a creator and especially as an artist, because if I was writing, I could arguably get a lot more done more quickly. As an artist, your life becomes quite segmented into. Basically, you don't count your life by days. You count it by pages. How many pages can I do that? How many pages can I do that? So I can pretty much forecast if I live another 40, 50 years, I know how many pages I can fit in, which is slightly depressing. And when you look at it that way, you think, there's just not enough time. So the constant dilemma is, well, do I want to do retellings of amazing stories that exist? Or do I want to try and put more stories into the world? And I kind of want to do both. That's the problem. Breaks is scratching a lot of I think because of having a year of working on so many different licenses and properties, which was great. It was amazing for me having Breaks going in the background because that's very much my, for me and Mullin, that's our story, our characters. And that's getting published later this year, which is with Soaring Penguin. So that's very exciting because that meant I was able to balance doing other people's stories with doing something that's my own story. But so there's loads of amazing properties out there, loads of great stories. I'd love to do some of the, the Greek myths and there's tons. But just not enough time in life.
No, that's true. Thank you very much, Emma. It's been a
pleasure.
Thank
you very much.
And hopefully we'll see you at the festival then.
You will indeed, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cool, see you then. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Night and day, you are the one. Only you beneath the moon and under the sun. Whether near to me or far, it's no matter, darling, where you are, I think of you. Night and day, day and night. Why is it so that this longing for this longing for you follows wherever I go. In the roaring traffic's boom, in the silence of my lonely room, I think night and day, day and night, under the hide of me. There's no such a hungry yearning burning inside of me, and this feeling won't go through till you let me spend my life making love to you day and night, night and day, night and day, night and day and a day and a night and a night and a day.
Where can you find all the latest comics? At a comic shop, of course. But where can you find quality recommendations of comics? Where can you find informative blogs? Where can you find previews of up-and-coming comics? Where can you find information and resources on the comic industry? Where can you find a well-priced, well-stocked shop? Where can you find amazing customer service with knowledgeable staff? Page 45, of course. Find us at www.page45.com or visit us at our Nottingham shop. Page 45, more than just a comic shop.
We're here with Sean Phillips in his magnificent studio, I must say. Hi, Sean.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, it's littered with... Not littered.
Littered is very tiny.
No, it's very tiny. It's full of books, art, models. It's amazing.
You've been busy and I'm going to nick a load of stuff.
Yeah, I'm wanting half of this, well, most of this stuff, let's be honest. Especially the zombie superhero models I saw behind me.
I had to buy those myself.
Did you?
Marvel didn't tell me they were coming out. I just happened to see them in the comic shop.
Right, okay.
I had to buy my own.
They are absolutely amazing. So, yeah, so how long do you spend in here a day then, roughly?
I'm here by 8 o'clock usually, and I'm here until about 7.
Really? That long?
Then halfway through the day I'll go out for a walk.
Yeah, that's what you've got to.
And I spend a lot of time up and down the stairs thinking I can hear the doorbell.
Right.
I can't, so especially if I'm expecting the delivery of yet another book or something. But yeah, I'm in here most of the time, and I tend to work. I try to only work Monday to Friday, but if there's a deadline approaching, I might have to do a day at the weekend as well.
But you try and...
I'll try not to. I'd rather work late in the week
than every weekend to
and then
yourself.
have the weekend free.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just sort of spreads and fills up all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to get those deadlines, I suppose, isn't it? It's a
Well,
challenge,
You've
I
got
suppose.
it's working out that.
Well, it is that
happy balance.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
I mean, the deadlines. We work on a 5-week schedule at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We've always done an issue a month ever since I've been doing stuff there.
Yeah.
But I found that too difficult, and he was finding it quite hard to get the scripts in.
Okay.
So we decided to do a 5-week schedule. So it works out that there's still a comic every month for the first 5 or 6 months, because there's sometimes an extra week in the month for the scheduling, and then we take a couple of months off when the trade comes out, and then we come back. So it sort of looks monthly, but it's not. So I do 10 issues a year. That's right. So so the schedule's quite easy, but I just spend the first week not really doing anything,
It sounds just like being at school almost.
Yeah. Or if sometimes I take on extra little jobs, which I think, that'd be really easy. That's only like a day, but that really sort of eats into the monthly schedule. So you think I've got the hang of it by now?
No,
but I haven't at all. I'm really bad. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but I never learn.
So where did you start in your early years? What was the start of your career?
Well, I had my first self-published when I was 15. I used to draw girls' comics like Bunty and Nikki and Judy and stuff like that.
Okay. Did you read any of them? I know I didn't.
This 1980, my first stuff was published. Girls' comics sort of fizzled out by around about 91, 92, I think. There wasn't any girls' comics left, really. But there was loads when I started out, and I got into it because I met this guy called Ken Houghton who did an evening class in my school, an adult education class for cartooning and doing comics. And because I was so into comics, me and my mate Pete got special permission to go, even though it was an adult class, to go and learn. We didn't know until we got there that he predominantly did girls' comics. I was a massive Marvel zombie. That's all I was interested in. I'd read anything, but I was really into Marvel. This was like
as teen, that's what you wanted.
Late 70s when it was British stuff was reprinting the classic 60s stuff, and even the current stuff was still good as well. But he was drawing stories about girls playing hockey and gymnasts and ballerinas and stuff. and the first thing I did with him, I started going to his class when I was 13, and by the time I was 15, he thought I was good enough to start working. So he sort of, in the 2 years of the class, he sort of trained us all up into how to do it his way, really.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting work, and my art teacher from school also went to the class, and he ended up drawing comics as well.
Okay.
There's one Judy annual which has got my first ever strip in it, and there's a strip from me, there's a strip from Ken, and there's a strip from Ross, my art teacher, as well, all in the same book. And a really nice Ian Kennedy story as well. So
I mean, it doesn't matter where you start. It's just impressive to
and
get
it turns out it was
published, I'm
perfect
assuming.
training, because it meant, because I was drawing real life stuff,
Yeah.
I can draw someone sat in a chair, so it looks like they're in the chair and the chair's on the floor. You know, that sort of stuff doesn't come naturally to a more of a superhero type artist, I suppose. I've struggled with like the fighting and flying stuff if I draw superheroes, but I can draw the real life stuff fine. That's,
which we see throughout your work currently. It's
horses still a struggle, but everything else.
That's the feet on horses.
And I never really want to draw a ballerina again.
No.
But, yeah, it was good. Yeah.
So where did you move to after that then, after you'd done the
well,
stuff?
I did that throughout sixth form, and then I went to art college to do graphic design in Preston, and I was still working then, bits and bobs. I've never had a different sort of job. When you're like 14, 15, you start doing a paper. I had a paper round once, but like you work at a shop or some horrible job for hardly any money. I was already making comics by the time I was 15, so I could spend it all on records and clothes and stuff. And, but I thought it was still only sort of like a part-time thing, and it didn't. I mean, for being 15, it paid brilliantly. I got like, I don't know, £20 a page or something, which back then, it was 30 odd years ago, was loads of money. So. But it wasn't enough money to be a proper job, really. So I was encouraged by my parents and school to go to art college, which I did. So I went into graphic design because that was.
But it's relevant in a way, I suppose.
It's sort of, yeah. I mean, I didn't really know what it was till I got there. I just knew it was something to do with art, but you could get a job doing it. Rather than fine art, where you just you'll starve to death.
One day.
And it wasn't until I actually got on the course and realised there was no drawing involved. It was all typography and ideas and stuff. I mean, I sort of muddled through. I managed to pass, but I didn't get a very good degree. But
it's still a degree at the end of the day.
And it has come in handy since, because I design all my own books now.
Okay.
Right, okay.
And all the creator own stuff I always do my own lettering and design, and I know how things are printed and stuff.
Yeah.
So and back then I learned before computers came in. So I could knock up a little bit of hot metal type if you wanted, and stuff like that. But it meant I knew the rules behind how it was done sort of stuff. So
a lot of people don't know. So that's probably really.
So I carried on doing comics throughout college as well. I had an agent by then. The first few jobs I did was stuff that they were Ken's jobs, and I'd pencil them for him and ink them. Yeah. And because we never had any credits on these books, as far as the publishers knew, that was his work. Yeah. And by the time I was about 18, his agent started representing me, so then I'd get work off my own back. He'd get me work. Sorry, I'm printing.
That's all right.
And then so I did the odd thing throughout college, and then about halfway through college at Preston, I met Brian Talbot.
Right. Yeah.
He went to college in Preston about over 10 years before me. I think he's over 10 years older than me. Yeah. But we had a lecturer in common. There was a guy called George who was still lecturing, teaching me. He goes, I know someone who draws comics. And he didn't look down on it. He was the only lecturer that sort of is a valid career or art form, because he was an illustrator on the side. He'd draw stuff as well as lecturing. So he arranged for me to go down and see Brian. And I was really scared, so I took a friend with me. I drew up a couple of sample pages of Judge Dredd, and sort of stood in a room like this in Brian's house. Yeah. Up until then, I'd always drawn in my bedroom. I didn't know. We never had a house where I could have a room to draw in. Now, I mean, I've got this room as my studio. Below this is another room, which is used to be my wife's studio, but she's got a studio in Kendal now. So my son does his art homework down there. Okay. So he has got a room just to draw in. Brilliant. Which is great. I would have loved that when I was a kid. Anyway, so I went round to see Brian, and he had a room with bookcases, and they had all his comics were all up on the shelves. Oh God, this is, and he was working at home. Oh God, this is what I want to do. So he was really nice. He was drawing Nemesis at the time. So while I was stood in front of me, he rang Pat Mills up and said, I've got this kid here. I think his stuff's really good. You should take a look. So I thought, that's it.
That's amazing.
2008, here I come, and it didn't really work out like that. It took a couple of years before I actually got any work out of it.
But it's opened that door so early.
Yeah, about when was it? It must have been the summer after that. So a year later, maybe, I was painting a mural in Preston Leisure Centre. Me and the same friend that went around to see Brian. We like doing big wooden cutouts of people doing sport and stuff, cartoony stuff. It's a summer job, and I got a phone call there from Pat saying he needed someone to draw this comic. Would I do it? And it never happened in the end because the person who was meant to draw it did do it in the end.
Right. Okay.
You know, it was a comic called Dice Man, which is sort of like a roll the dice, make your own adventures comic.
Okay.
You roll a 6, you go to turn to page, whatever, and, and the story sort of, it all ends up the same at the end, I think, the story, but you sort of
leads a different path as it goes through. Yeah.
So that was an issue of that, and they did about 4 issues in the end, but the one I was going to draw, the guy who was originally going to draw it, actually didn't manage it at the last minute. So then it took another year or two after that until when I left college, Crisis Magazine was just starting.
Yeah.
I still had my agent then, Mike, and he knew it was coming up because he knew what was going on in comics and British comics, and he managed to get my name up there. Pat remembered my name, but he'd only seen my girls' comics by then. Yeah. And so I did a draw of Mega City 1 with some hardware and stuff, and sent that in, and he said, oh, right, so I got to do New Statesman then. So that was it. So it was like about maybe 3 or 4 months out of college. So like September, October 88. It was just before UCAC 88 because I went to it. The day before was the launch of Crisis Magazine. So me and my agent went along to that. It was in a nice restaurant in Covent Garden. Yeah. And then afterwards we went to see another agent who was friends with mine, just for like a chat and that and a drink. And he goes, oh, I've got this guy's portfolio here. It was Chris Weston. He'd just done his first Dread story. So he goes, if you're going to go to UCAC tomorrow, can you take it along for him? So I said, oh yeah. So I took it home, had a good look at it overnight, and then went in the next day to UCAC. And I'd never been to a comic show before because like I said, I grew up in Suffolk, and we didn't have such things.
It's only fairly.
Didn't have such things. It was, it blew my mind. It was, and even though I'd had nothing proper published by then. I'd done the girls' comics, and obviously no one knew that stuff. Yeah. I still had sat there with like John Smith and Pat Mills and Carlos and Jim Bakey signing that weekend. Even though I hadn't got anything done yet, people. It was great. It was better, Brilliant. So then I never had to get a proper job.
I'd say it's still a proper job now as you're doing, to be fair.
Well, I don't know.
You're doing what you love.
But I still did. I did like a couple of episodes of New Statesman, and then for the next 6 months, I still carried on doing the girls' comics because there wasn't any more stuff from 2000 AD or Crisis in the offing until a few months later. And then I did some painted. I did a painted episode of New Statesman, the last couple of episodes. The first 2 were like drawn in black and white and then coloured in with ink, how Jim Baker, the actual artist, did it. So I thought I'd better emulate him because I thought that was what you meant to do. Yeah. But in the meantime, I'd seen Duncan Fagredo's pages that he'd done of a couple of episodes of New Statesman. Yeah. Painted, frenetic, Ralph Steadman-y sort of amazing stuff. They were up on the wall in the office when I went in to deliver my artwork. I thought, God, shit, why didn't I do it like that? Why have I done this sort of like poor man's imitation of Jim? So the next time when they got me stuff to do, I did it how I wanted to do it. So it was all fully painted, and after that they was like, God, why didn't you do like this before? This is just great. So I was never out of work after that.
That's good. When was it you moved? You went to do what they class as the British invasion of America. What were you involved there?
Yeah. Excuse me. Up in the late 80s, well, probably from the mid 80s onwards, Karen Berg would come over from DC and set up in her hotel suite and interview people. People would go and one year, I think it must have been 89 or 90 or something like that. We knew she was coming, and John Smith, who I did New Statesman with, he worked up a proposal for the Two-Face comic, graphic novel. Not a comic then, it was just before Arkham Asylum came out.
Okay.
So it was like comics were just about to grow up, hadn't quite. So he managed to get us an interview with Karen. So we went to a hotel suite. I'd painted up 6 pages of Batman and Two-Face, and John had written like an inch thick synopsis of what the story was going to be, because that's how he wrote. He learned from Alan Moore. You write a lot, and we went along, had this interview. We didn't know anything. We didn't know who Karen was. All we knew was she was someone from DC. This is before Vertigo, just before, a couple of years before. We had no idea that she didn't even like superheroes or wouldn't be remotely interested. So she didn't like our proposal at all, But she remembered me, so about 6 months later, when they needed a fill-in artist on Hellblazer, I got a phone call saying that I want to do an issue of that.
Yeah.
So that was in early 1990. That would have been. So it's as easy as that.
Tell you, it's nice.
So I did an issue of Hellblazer.
When you've got the skills,
I did 2 or 3 issues of Hellblazer, and then by the time the next UCAC rolled around in the following September, I went and met her again, and she offered me 2 different projects. I had Kid Eternity monthly comic, which there'd been a graphic novel of that before that Duncan Fegredo had drawn with Grant Morrison writing, and this was a follow-on from that of Anne Nesenti writing it, who had written Daredevil in the 80s, which I absolutely loved. I was a massive fan of that particular comic of hers, and so they offered me that as an ongoing monthly and a painted graphic novel called Heart of the Beast with Dean Motter, and I said yes to both of them. So I said I can do both. You don't have to. Which they were quite surprised about. I said, I can easily do a comic a month. I'd never done a comic a month then, obviously. But, well, I'm not going to say, oh no, I don't think I'll do it.
No, you just take it.
I'll just make the time, So it worked out that I think I did like 6 or 7 issues of Kid Eternity. We had to fill in 1 issue, and I spent a month drawing, painting Heart of the Beast stuff. Then I went back and did some more Kid Eternity. We had another fill in, I think, which was expected. No one was expecting everyone to really draw an issue every month. They'd already written in the fact that there'd be a fill in later on, so I just took advantage of using those couple of months off to get a long way into this 96 painted pages, which ended up taking ages. But
a learning lesson,
But it turns out I could do a monthly comic quite easily. A lot easier than I can now. I don't know if that's because
is that because you're more into it, maybe?
Well, maybe my personal standards are higher, and I want to get more into it, or I don't know really. Maybe it's getting old and slowing down.
No, I don't think like that.
And not so keen. And back then I didn't have a studio at home. I was working I was living in London then, and we had like a 2-bedroom flat, and when my first child was born, he had to have the second bedroom, which I was using as a studio. So I ended up working in a friend's spare room a couple of doors up the street. They had a whole house. They were posh. They were. We only had a little flat, and I ended up working in there. So there was no distractions. Like now when I work at home, I spend a lot of time talking to the cats, or look out the window, or even just taking stuff off the shelf and have a look at a book, which I couldn't do then because it was just I was just there to work. So I wouldn't do particularly long hours, but I'd head down and get on with it, and I got a lot more stuff done, I think. So maybe there's something to be said for not working at home, but I can't do it now.
I think it's what everyone wants to do, isn't it? That's the thing. So when you get to that point,
But then again, like I said, my wife's got a lovely studio in the factory in Kendal. Absolutely massive space. You can paint, huge stuff and have all the stuff out. And whenever I go in there, I think, it'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? But then I think, well, the particular thing I needed would be at home, and I'd have to go and get it. And, and also then I'd go. I could think, I'll just go shopping, or I can go out for lunch.
Living
in
your life's your own.
In this village, I can't go. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
The guy in the newsagent's is sick of the sight of me.
From there, was it right? You moved more to 2000 AD from there, is that right?
A little bit, yeah.
One of the things that stands out to me was Devlin Noir. I remember as a teenager reading that, and obviously I didn't know at the time who was drawing this stuff.
Yeah.
And you compare that to your work, and it just stands out so much. Your style stands out.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know. I always find it really hard to see my own style.
No, it really does. When you start looking back over the comics, because we were looking into the work you've done, and realising, I read that.
Yeah.
It just stands out so much. I mean, with Devlin Noir, in that particular, do you pick jobs that suit your style, do you feel, or do you just sort of take them on and fit your style around? I'd
take what's offered, usually.
Okay.
I don't. It's only very recently I've ever had the luxury of being able to turn things down. You sort of... you just take what comes. I think when we did Devlin, though, because I'd already worked with John on a couple of other things for Crisis, he had 2 or 3 different ideas of something to do, and I did choose Devlin for that particular one. But usually it's just sort of you take what's given. When I was doing stuff for Crisis magazine, even though they shared an office with 2000 AD, there wasn't that much crossover really between us. Because there was different editors and they wanted to keep their...
Just got to get on with your work,
the guy who edited Crisis didn't necessarily want me going off to draw Judge Dredd for a couple of months when he wanted me to do something else. So it took a while to get there, and I was never that bothered about getting into 2000 AD because I never read it when I was a kid.
Okay.
It wasn't until I was about 18 or 19 that I ever started reading it properly. So it wasn't sort of like, I've got to I've got to get
Yeah,
there.
like
I mean, I was
something.
perfectly happy doing the Crisis stuff, and at the time it was all talked up as, you know, this is where comics is going in that sort of more realistic, grown up way. And I thought, well, I want to be part of that. You know? And it suited my work. I thought, you know, we did a signing once in a comic shop in Kent, and there was like about 4 or 5 of us from Crisis, and 4 or 5 people from Marvel UK who had a big resurgence of original comics then, and the Deadline people. And we looked and thought, well, we're in the right place. You know, I could never be like Jamie Hewlett or Philip Bond or anyone like that. You know, the cool kids.
Right.
You know, they did the weird stuff. I mean, I love the comic, the magazine Deadline, but that just didn't seem like anything I could possibly do. That sort of wacky stuff. So you know, I felt I was in the right place. And the Marvel UK stuff was all superhero, sci-fi stuff, and I was never that into it particularly. I like reading it, but I don't necessarily want to travel around.
Yeah.
But you did move on to do a bit of Marvel stuff with the Marvel Zombies.
Again, that just came along that I was desperate for work.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But one of the very few times when I had nothing lined up. And that just came along. It was before Walking Dead had started, but they hadn't really...
It wasn't
like it is now.
Yeah.
I think it had been going, I don't know, a year maybe a year and a half. So Robert got off with Marvel Zombies because he already drew a zombie comic. He was nowhere near the first person that got asked to write it, and I was nowhere near the first person that got asked to draw it. So I had so many people say, I got offered that and I turned it down. I wish I hadn't, because it was Marvel's biggest selling book of the year.
It's a brilliant...
It made me loads of money.
But then, is it not so good just because, again, your style jumps in on that, and it really gives a different feel to what your normal superhero artists...
Yeah.
You know, the characters are just so... I don't know, they're so different.
I was trying to make it look like a proper Marvel comic, but that was as close as I could get.
Well, no, you want it to look different because it's not a Marvel comic. It's a completely different style of story in a way. You've got these superheroes eating everyone, for goodness sake. You know, it's...
Yeah, but I still want it to look like a real one.
Well, I think it looks brilliant. What's come out of that result, I think, is just a brilliant comic.
Thanks. I did enjoy drawing that. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. And I did all the characters in their 60s outfits because I could draw that from memory.
Right, okay.
You know, I don't want to draw whatever Iron Man looks like now. That's far too complicated. And, you know, I want to do it when he had like the flip up face mask with little pointy tops on it and stuff like that. You know, that's, you know, really sort of got me back in that sort of nostalgic feel of reading that stuff when I was a kid, or drawing that stuff for fun when I was a kid.
Well, no kids are reading that.
No,
it's not that bad actually.
There are a few. I've had some.
So then, eventually, obviously, you've gone on to work with Ed Brubaker.
Yeah.
How did you meet? With Ed then?
We were put together on a comic called Scene of the Crime in about 1999, I think, something like that. My editor on that, Shelley Bond, asked if I'd fancy working on that. Ed and Michael Lark had started on the comic. Michael had been drawing it, and he'd done the whole first issue, and he wasn't very pleased at how it turned out. He thought it looked a bit smooth and a bit too much like his own stuff. I always find that if I do something that doesn't look like I did it, I'm always really pleased with that.
Okay.
If it looks like I've done it, I think, oh, God, I've done it again, you know. So he wanted something that didn't look quite as much like him. So Shelley asked if I'd like to ink Michael's stuff, because I have a much scratchier, rougher style than he did at the time. His stuff has gone quite a lot looser since, but at the time it was much smoother and you know, more comic-y. So I never really inked anybody before, because doing British comics, you always did the whole job.
Yourself,
you know, I'd always penciled, inked, and painted if I did colour work, or you know, or done the whole lot for black and white. In American comics, you tend to get it split up. So that was interesting project to do. You know, Michael did amazingly detailed pencils. Well, I thought they were. Looking back, what other now I've seen other people's pencils, they weren't really. You know, I had a lot of. I could interpret them how I wanted, really. Everything was there. All the information was there. What I needed to know, that was a car, or that was a face, or whatever. But it wasn't like I didn't just trace over his lines. I could add a bit of me to it. So that was great. He could draw anything and make it look effortless. That's the best thing about inking someone else's work, is you get to see the pencil pages, and you can sort of think, how the hell do they do that? Why can't I do that? You know. And it's similar to when I've penciled stuff and someone else has inked it. I think, God, why did they do that? Why couldn't I think of doing that? You know, I've had Bill Sienkiewicz ink me before on a Black Widow story. And he was already attached before I was, and I only did it because I wanted to see what he did with me. I knew he'd totally obliterate it, so you couldn't even tell I drew it. But that's what I wanted. I wanted
I
wanted to see. And when I get it back, I'll look it up and I think, well, he's inked that with a marker, or he's used a stick for that, or a big variety of tools to make different sorts of marks. Thinking that I'll then carry that forward into my own work, but it never really happens.
You get your own style and just...
Yeah, just sort of you try it for a couple of panels and then it's sort of you forget, and then it goes back to normal stuff. But anyway, so I met Ed doing that. He was pleased with how the project turned out, and then I got offered a Batman Elseworlds with him writing it. And that was it
from
really.
there.
And then we met. We hadn't met each other that much over the years, particularly. But we met at San Diego the year I started the Batman thing. I think I got about halfway through Batman. I think it was a 48 or 64 page Elseworlds book set in the 30s, sort of like a private detective type thing. And I got about halfway through, and I got offered Wildcats, and I turned it down. So I can't avoid you doing this Batman thing. And then I spoke to my wife. She goes, "You're an idiot. Just ask for an extension on the time of the Batman thing, because it wasn't scheduled. It was just
when it's done. It's
done. So I said, okay. So I went back and said, actually, I've got a year's extension now. I can come draw Wildcats for a year.
Okay. So
I went to San Diego that year, and I was talking to someone at the DC stand, and this guy comes over and goes, "Oh, I'm Ed." I went, "All right." I didn't realise he was Ed. I just thought he was someone called Ed. So I was just like, "All right." And so that it was right after that. But then we went out to dinner that night, and we were fine. But yeah, it's been great working with him, because he writes stuff I like. Even if I wasn't drawing it, I'd still like it.
Yeah.
And whenever I get a script off him, it's always goes off in different directions than I think it might do, and which makes it interesting. Yeah. Every time I get a script, I think, how the hell am I going to draw that? Why did you write that in there when I've got to draw, a car chase, or just something set on a New York street when I've got to draw 1,000 people in the crowd. I've just drawn a sequence where the guy in Kill or Be Killed, he's on the tube, the subway platform, talking to the guy on the newsstand. So I've got to draw a newsstand with 1,000 magazines and newspapers and stuff. Right? And this is from a variety of angles, because it takes place over a couple of pages. And then he walks off, he goes downstairs to the train. Goes up, gets on the train, gets off, there's a bag search, the police bag search on the platform on the station before you get out onto the street. So he has his bag search, then he goes up onto the street, and then you see the street, and then goes, there's hundreds of people around, and there's loads of police cars and all this. And I think, oh God! And the first time you read it, you think, this isn't fair.
He probably does it on purpose. Yeah.
No, it's because it's not just him, but I think a lot of writers are worried that if it's a lot of talking head stuff, they want to make it visually interesting, because they don't. Whereas I'd rather it wasn't. I'd rather
it'd just be.
I mean, the scene after that is just a couple sat on his bed talking, and there's enough there for me to make it interesting. I think.
Yeah. No, I think I
don't need someone crashing through the window. Or
looking at your work, it does actually pull you in. The style does pull you in, especially. I mean, the original Kill or Be Killed, the first set of series, so much is set in just a room with two people, and it does pull you in. So it works that way. Yeah.
It's a challenge to make that stuff look visually interesting, and I'm interested in how the characters act. It's taken me years to get into wanting to be able to draw backgrounds and stuff. I'd rather not do that stuff if I can help it. But Kill or Be Killed, stupidly, I started off doing like a couple of big shots of New York streets, and of course Ed likes those ones, and then he writes some more in, and then I can do it again, and it's because I'm working digitally now as well. You can just zoom in and draw every little nodule, and I try not to, but
a bit too detailed at times.
You just get
there's stuff that just gets lost when it's printed, but I enjoy it.
So when are you going to sell the rights for a film for Kill or Be Killed? Because I think it should happen.
Can't say.
I'll ask no more about that. I wasn't expecting that answer.
Every time you read it,
we've always had interest in all of our stuff over the years, but nothing's ever sort of got that far.
It's just that story. It just feels perfect for something like that. It's just pulls you in.
Well, I'll tell you when the tape goes off.
No.
But yeah, I mean, like 10 years ago when we first moved here, Sleeper got optioned as a movie. Ed and I don't own Sleeper, DC own it, but we get a stake in whatever happens to it. And I got a phone call from someone at DC saying, Sam Raimi wants to direct it with Tom Cruise in it. And I'm thinking, oh God, I think I'll go and buy a speedboat. Thinking, well, that's it, you know. If they say they want to do it, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it never happened because I don't know how these things work. But it just sort of just happened. Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's production company bought it again. Mm. And I thought, great.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, he gets announced as the new Batman. So God, it's not going to happen, is it? So I don't know what's happening with that now. But all of our stuff has sort of been up and down like that over the years. You know, things get optioned.
Just waiting for that one.
The option lapses. Sometimes they re-up it, and sometimes they don't. Or sometimes we don't want to re-up it if they've had a couple of years and they haven't actually done anything with it. We'd rather take it back. And but you know, I think everything we've done has had interest.
I can see why,
including Kill and Be Killed.
Yeah. So the Comic Art Festival.
Yes.
How did you get involved with that?
Oh, that's because I know Julie Tate.
Yeah.
We've both got autistic kids, and we met. Well, my wife met her at bike riding lessons for kids.
Okay.
Because my youngest can't ride a bike, and her boy can't ride a bike either. So we met at that, and then we became friends. And then when my youngest was 12, I think, we hired a stretch limo and went to Blackpool to see the lights for his birthday. Massive car, you fit 12 people in it. So Julie and her boyfriend came, and while we was there, she goes, I've just read this comic. She goes, do you think if I put on a comic festival, they'd come? Yeah. And it was the Now of Brown by Glyn Dillon, which if you've not read it, it was the best book that came out that year. It was an absolutely amazing book. So I said, well, I know Glyn. And I happened to be seeing him the next week at a festival in France. So I said, I'll go and ask him. So I did. He says, yes, of course. And then she reads another book. She goes, do you think they'd come? So I want to know them too. And I asked, I don't know who the second person was, because she, her background is running festivals and stuff.
Yeah,
so she's discovered comics because Finn, her son, has started reading comics, which is another way how we got friendly, because he'd come around here and sort of bend my ear for 2 hours about the minute details of Marvel continuity, because he had no one else to talk about that sort of stuff, whereas I knew it, some of it anyway. You know, he was much deeper into all this stuff than I was. But so she started reading his comics to make sure they were okay in that, and she sort of discovered this whole world of a new medium. Which she knew nothing about, so she'd end up buying loads of books all the time and say, "It's in this, it's in that." Wow. And it was great because it was nice to have someone that enthusiastic to talk to about all this stuff. So, because I know her and I'm geographically close, I sort of get roped in. I've asked for a year off. I asked for a year off this year, but she said I can't have one. It's been great because that means I'm not that heavily involved. I'm more of a sounding board, I suppose. Really, she'll say, "What about if we had this person?" I'll say, well, they're a bit of an arse. You don't want to invite them. You've got to be with them for the weekend, or you can't have them because you've already got those come in and they don't like each other, and stuff like that. And sometimes I get to recommend guests. There's people I want to meet. So like the first year we had, but the trouble is though, a lot of the stuff I like is old, so they're either dead or really old. The people who made it. So like the first year we had Jose Munoz came. We did Alex Sinner, an Argentinian artist, and I'd met him once in Spain about 10 or 15 years ago, and he didn't speak any English then, so it's just sort of like nodding and said hello, and I watched him do a drawing of that. So we got him, and in the meantime he's learned English, so that was great, so we could have a proper talk. And I had an exhibition on the first year in the brewery, so he saw my artwork,
which was brilliant. You never got obviously get to see that, but it was a brilliant exhibition. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks. So so people like that. So and like last year or the year before, rather, Darwin Cook came over because Julie and I went to Toronto to TCAF, and she goes, right, I'm going to invite some Canadians. I said, well, you can't invite every single one. I don't know what she's like. So I went off to do my thing. I had a panel or somewhere to go, and I left her at the front, and I came back a couple hours later, and she'd got like 6 people down the tables, and she'd invited all of them. But fortunately, they were all really good ones, including Darwin and Seth and a few others. So, people. Sometimes it's been really good that I get people to come.
Yeah. So what are you doing this year for the festival? Anything that you can
Me
announce?
personally, well, one thing that's already been announced is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Will Eisner this year, The Spirit. So we're doing a Spirit magazine, well, a newspaper. Julie wanted to do something, and we had the idea of doing a thing where, because The Spirit was a newspaper strip originally, they'd get like I think it's the middle 7 or 8 pages in the newspaper, sort of like that. I'm holding up a broadsheet newspaper. So I said, well, why don't we do this? And we could do a 12-pager one. We could have a cover, the back cover with some text and stuff, and then 10 story pages.
Yeah.
So we'd get 10 people to do a single page story each.
Yeah.
Because the newspaper is so massive,
Yeah.
you could easily do a 20
Quite
pound a
quick,
page
yeah.
and you get a whole story in there.
Yeah.
So we sort of brainstormed a few people. Some people are people that were guests this year, some people are previous guests, and some people are just new people that we wanted to be in. So I'm working on that. So I'm drawing a page that Ed's written.
Okay.
He says he's written it. I haven't seen it yet. And deadline, we've only got 2 months left to go, so I've had the one first finished page. Brendan McCarthy's on a page, and I got that this week. There's a little bit of it here. There's a
Sneak preview.
detail. That was just to see how big the lettering's going to look when it's printed.
Yeah.
That was the original one, massive, not quite so big. It'll be fine when it's printed.
Yeah.
So we got him. So there's me, Brendan, Becky Cloonan's doing the cover. Jonathan Ross is writing one for an artist to be decided. He says he's going to ask Duranko first. When he says no, he'll go and ask someone else, and then we're going to work down the list. But he's not answering his emails at the moment, so I'm a bit annoyed with him. Who else have we got? Viz, Seth.
Brilliant.
I don't know. 10 of us anyway.
Yeah.
Johnny Burns.
Yeah.
Johnny Burns is doing one who's my favourite UK artist. He draws Judge Dredd at the moment, and The Order. I think that's in 2008 at the moment.
Yeah.
He's drawing that, but he's been going since the 60s, and he's drawn loads of brilliant stuff. And so we've been trying to get him as a guest, but he's 78 or so. He lives in Cornwall. He doesn't want to come
No,
that
I
far.
can understand.
But we're getting him to do a page,
That's
and I'm just pleased that he might. I sent him a book. He doesn't do email, so everything I've been doing with the other artists, I've had to write out and post to him. So I sent him a book that I'd done of all of his stuff. I made my own book of he did strips of Looking magazine in the 70s, which is like 2-page TV adaptations. He did like Bionic Woman and Space 1999 and the Tom Morrow People and Magnum PI and stuff like that. Okay. So I had a book made of it for me, and I had another one made for him. So I sent him that, along with one of my books and a little note saying, I'm not a weird stalker. I was doing this anyway because I'm a big fan. So that's great. So we get to use him. So that's the main thing I'm doing this year.
Okay.
I'll be doing panels and live draws and stuff as well. But I think that's the
that's
main
been
project.
house,
I just did a book. John McShane from Glasgow has written a book about a guy called Topfler, who did the first comic in the 1800s or 1700s. And it's never been translated into English, so John's done a translation, and we've done it as a little paperback-sized book, like a 100-page book or something like that. So that's now available now, I think, but that's we launched properly at the show as well.
Yeah. Oh,
So Julie's getting quite into publishing stuff.
Yes.
So last year we did that amazing looking Dave McKean book.
Oh, Black Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole show we did around it and everything and that. So this year we're doing The Spirit. We've done this little book about Topfler. I think she's got something else on the go, but I can't remember what it is now. She tells me all this stuff. We meet up every couple of months and have lunch, and she tells me all this stuff, and it goes in one ear and straight out the other one. That's why I can't remember who else is in the bloody Spirit book, because I've just forgotten it. It's my age.
You keep saying that. You're not that bad. We've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
Pete Taylor is actually probably linked to this. He's heard on a podcast about you self-publishing a tabloid-size comic.
Yeah, I was going to do one for myself for fun.
Okay.
Because there's a printers online called newspaperclub.com, and for my son's A-level or one of his art college projects, I don't know what, he did a comic which he sold at the first festival. So 4 years ago. He's probably just finished his A-level. He was just on foundation then, and it was a tabloid-sized comic, so like, I don't know, 16 pages, but again you could fit a lot of panels on a page. It's a very dense read, and I just really loved the format, so I thought, well, I think I'll do one of those as well. So I had an idea of what sort of thing I wanted to do as far as story went, and I got a friend to write it for me.
Okay.
When I said before that me and a friend went to the comic class when I was a kid, that's my friend Pete Dorey, who I've known since I was about 7, and whenever I get asked to do stuff for little anthology comics or whatever, I usually get him to write it for me. He wrote me a Conan story for Dark Horse a couple of years ago because he's a massive Robert E. Howard Conan fan. I just told him I wanted a giant snake, no horses, nothing, stuff like that, and he wrote me like an 8-page Conan story, and we've done other bits and bobs as well for other sort of anthologies and that. So I thought I'd get him to write me one, telling him the sort of thing I wanted, and then he'd do that. So he's written it. 2 years later, I've not actually got to draw it yet because there's never time.
Just too much
on.
never time. Yeah.
But I'd already said to a couple of people that I was doing it. I was in Gosh once on page 45 saying, I'm thinking of doing this, do you think you'd stock it? I said, oh yeah, we'll definitely stock it. So all I've got to do is go off my arse and
wait and see.
I haven't started it.
And Undertow podcast, which podcasts just about your work, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never actually listened.
Yeah, it's impressive that you got your own podcast. You're an Ed.
Yeah, it's the same guys who do the criminal blog, which I was amazed about in the first place. They set this blog up 10 years ago just because we had never comic out.
Yeah,
and it's still going.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's a huge music fan. I believe you are. What's your favourite album?
Ooh, I don't know about the whole album. My favourite musicians are Bowie, Elvis. Actually, Bowie, Elvis, and Shirley Bassey were all born on the same day, so they're quite like I like all three of them.
I didn't even know that.
That's useful to know for pub quizzes.
That's one's going to stay there.
Yeah, January the 8th. So I don't know. My favourite Bowie album is probably Hunky Dory, so maybe that's my favourite album. But
Okay.
Don't know. I like a lot of different music.
Probably music, it changes every year, doesn't it?
It does.
Your favourite,
you have
albums, favourite
phases.
musician.
Yeah. I've just started buying vinyl again because for the festival we put on an exhibition a couple of years ago of record covers drawn by comic artists. Yeah. So I'd be buying vinyl thinking, I'd quite like to listen to some of this. I went and bought a turntable and I started buying loads of records, so yeah. So I'm ending up buying stuff that I used to have, a lot of soundtracks. So it's good stuff to listen to when I'm working.
Yeah.
I find it hard to listen to podcasts and stuff when I'm working.
You've got to concentrate.
Just people talking, it puts me off. Even on the radio with a DJ, it puts me off. So I tend to listen to.
You've been listening to Zelda, haven't you?
Well, my son got the game and it came with the CD. So I've ripped it to my computer, but I'm not actually listening to it yet.
You're not listening to it.
I did say I was because I thought that was quite cool.
You're just trying to be
down
with the youth now.
Down with the kids, yeah. But we only got it by mistake because he wanted the Switch for Christmas, but it didn't come out for Christmas.
No.
So we just made him a little voucher.
Oh.
My oldest son has just bought a house in London, so he wanted a coffee table.
Okay.
My middle son is living in Manchester, just left college, so he wanted a drawing table. And the youngest one wanted a Switch. So we made him a little voucher each for Christmas, on Christmas morning. All they got was a piece of paper. Because there's no point getting a drawing table delivered here when it's going to go to Manchester. And again, Fred is in London, so he didn't want his table here and carry it back. So anyway, I knew the Switch was coming out, but I didn't think to pre-order. Because I'm an idiot. Because I just thought, I know the day it comes out, I'll just go to the shop and buy one.
No.
I didn't know it didn't work like that.
No.
So on Friday, my wife went to Game in Kendal. Oh no, we haven't got any yet. Did you pre-order? No. Well, loads of people did, but if they haven't picked it up by Monday, we're going to sell them on.
Yeah.
So she went on Monday. Someone happened to not pick theirs up, so she managed to buy it. And the special edition Zelda game, she didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So it came with a statue of a sword, on a base and a CD and that. So yeah.
Brilliant.
But I don't play games, so I watch them play them, the kids occasionally, and I appreciate the look of them. But
the work that goes into them. Yeah.
I used to play the SNES when that came out, which was 25 years ago.
Don't say that because it makes me feel old when you say that.
Don't.
Well, I bought it in 1990, so when was that? 27 years ago. And then I had kids, and then I didn't have any time then.
No.
So I stopped dead then, really.
And that's it. You don't go back anyway. Yeah. It's
until the kids were old enough to start getting their own consoles, and then I'd dabble occasionally.
Back into it, doesn't it?
Occasionally, I might play Mario Kart or something like that because I like that sort of game.
Everyone loves Mario Kart.
I've never really been into sort of first-person shooter or any of that sort of stuff. Yeah. I like the look of them and the amount of effort that goes into making.
Some of the stories are really exceptional as well.
I never get that far into it, but the look of them, I like the graphics. But yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sean.
That's all right.
That's been a brilliant interview.
Brakes on a plane, brakes on a train, brakes to make you go insane. Brakes in love, brakes in war, but we got the brakes to get you on the floor. And these are the brakes. Break it up, break it up, break it up, break down.
How do? Welcome to Breakdowns. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a designer, illustrator, and small press comic creator. You might have heard me on the first episode. I was Charlie Adlard's warm-up man. I completely understand if you skipped my interview. I didn't know who I was till recently, so quite understand. The last thing I drew was Space Chimp. Before that was a gorilla detective. And then I think before that was a wardrobe. So pretty interesting week art-wise for me. I spend as much time making my own comics as I can and helping others to create their own. I run comic creation workshops for school libraries, community groups. I just got asked to do one in a prison, which is a first. In my own comics work at the moment, I'm working on the next Monster Kids story. Monster Kids is my own strip, which I developed with Adam Wilmot, and we're working on more stories with Ricky Weber. It's about a group of monsters who are supposed to be friends, but they're really quite beastly to each other. So we're working on the plot for the next story of that. The first story is available digitally on acesweekly.co.uk. That's volume 20. Aces Weekly is a digital online anthology site with a huge number of amazing stories and artists on there. It's well worth a look if you haven't been there before. Other comics work for me at the moment. I'm working on the pencils of my pages for Copperopolis number 3, which is a comic I work on with my artist buddy Mark Hughes, again with Ricky and Adam. So that's been plotted and scripted, so I'm now working on the pencils. Hopefully might be able to start inking those at the weekend. I'm preparing for the Art Bubble Festival in Denmark. I'm just sorting through what I've got for my table. I'm thinking that I want more books. You always want more books on your table, but I just realised the other day I'd produced over 500 sketch cards over the last few years. So I thought it might be quite nice to sort through those and pick out my favourites and get them collected and printed into a nice little art book for my table. So I'm working on that at the moment. Enough about me. Let's talk about the International Lakes Comic Art Festival, which is why we're all here. I've been given the position of comic art correspondent to round out the team, and what a year to start. The news I read recently that this year the festival is celebrating the life and work of comic great Will Eisner, which is just fantastic news. There's going to be an exhibition of his work. They're doing a celebratory broadsheet comic with contributions from Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, Duncan Vigrado, I think Jason Latour, there's Becky Cloonan. It's in a broadsheet style because that's where I think Will Eisner's famous creation, The Spirit, was presented in that form as a newspaper strip. And they're also doing a competition for students. The prize includes VIP passes, limited edition signed prints, students producing work on the theme of the spirit of the Lake District. They've said it can be a single image or a comic strip. I think they want a combination of obviously a tribute to Will Eisner, a recognition of what he did. We're bringing in an element of the lakes. So, I mean, they mentioned it can be a reinvention of his work with a Lake District theme, something along those lines, which is a fantastic competition with fantastic prizes. Anybody who wants to find out more about that, they can do that at the comicartfestival.com website. I mean, obviously, if you're thinking of entering that, it's a brilliant chance to start comic work, which I think is one of the principles of the festival, is to inspire people. It inspires a lot of volunteers to give their time up. It obviously inspires the town to get involved. So the fact that there's a comic art competition as well now is a wonderful element. I'm going to be talking about tips and help to keep you working on any comics that you might be doing yourself. I think there's a lot of people who are inspired to make their own comics and to draw after attending the festival. So if you do have any questions or issues you're struggling with in making your own comics, give me a shout. You can find me at thismanthispete.com. I am at thismanthispete on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for listening. Next episode, I'm going to talk about Will Eisner a little bit more, explore his career and work, and there's also a competition. So hope you listen again next time. Cheers.
Brakes on a plane, brakes on a train, brakes to make you go insane. Brakes in love, brakes in war, but we got the brakes to get you on the floor. And these are the brakes. Break it up, break it up, break it up, break down. Yo.
Room for one lawgiver, please.
Ah, Judge Dredd. Or is it just Dredd? Fancy seeing you here.
Catwoman, you also here for the Comic Art Festival or a stint in the ISO cubes?
Of course. I love to see my makers in action. Ah! Watch it, Greenie.
Careful, Hulk. In this town we have a saying. Once is a coincidence, twice is a booking offence.
I think he booked the events on the website.
Huh?
comicartfestival.com. It's got all the perfect information about the event.
Yeah, so's my fist. Druck, I'm out of here. Not standing around with those 4 tortoises that have just entered the building. Cowabunga, dude!
Find out all about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival and booking information at www.comicartfestival.com.
So, festival news. As Pete has already said about the Will Eisner stuff, we're going to go on to that. He's gone all about it. So,
yes, he covers
Sean
that
also discussed about because he's creating the broadsheet paper as well. So we're enough to talk about that. The publication of a special edition of How to Create Graphic Novels.
Oh, so how to create what was that?
Graphic novels.
There we go.
By Rudolf Topfer. I can't say that name.
No.
First published in 1885, it was the first ever.
Even
book
1845.
1845 on creating.
Would you like me to
novels,
read that bit?
Which has been translated, edited, and introduced by John McShane and designed by Sean Phillips.
Festival patron.
Well, we know that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it again, reiterating.
Okay.
Remember, he's my BFF.
So that's going to be available at the festival. Looks really cool. Again,
it does.
Page 45. I think it might even be available to buy now from page 45. Go and have a nosy. So that's interesting. And also they've announcement of another book that the festival itself is publishing, available in October by Mark Jackson. Here Comes Cat Stevens. I really can't read. That's my problem. I can spout rubbish left, right, and centre.
We know,
but I can't read.
No, you can't. That was awful.
So Mark
should hang your head in shame.
Mark Jackson, who's done stuff for the Beano and has got his own stuff out there as well, he's going to be on the next episode of the show.
Yes,
as well. So it's
can't wait for that. He's going to become my new best friend too.
Everyone's your new best friend.
Everyone.
So he can talk about that as well. So that'll be really cool.
Yes.
We're hoping on the next episode to have John Freeman, as long as it all works out and fits. Which will be a face-to-face interview, and also possibly go and visit in a local comic shop for a chat with them as well if it all fits. Fingers crossed. We've got to fit all this in and sort it all out. With Easter, it might cause problems.
We didn't realise how much fitting in was. It's quite hard, isn't it? There's so much we want to do.
We've got Joe Dici to come and chat to us at some point as well. We've not arranged that, so that's going to be either next episode or the episode after. We're hoping for the episode after. I'm hoping to get Brian Talbot to come and have a chat as well. Maybe Mary as well. So big name there.
Yeah, very big.
So fingers crossed we'll sort that out. It's just fitting it in with these people because they're just so
they're all busy.
That's the problem. There's others. I've got a list of people I want to talk to and interview, but it's just fitting it all in. Really is a challenge. Something else we're starting, just because we haven't got enough time to do stuff, we're going to start more stuff. We've got a channel for the podcast on YouTube, but that is just going to be where we throw these episodes on as well, to give us a bit more...
So people can find us, really.
Essentially. But we're going to do comic-related work for the festival podcast, but it's going to be on our House of Geek channel.
Yeah.
We're going to stick it all together because there's no point having the two channels working. We might as well have one channel and focus on there.
Yeah, link them together.
So on that channel we'll be doing other stuff like board game, geeky stuff, Blood Bowl.
Oh.
But we're also going to be looking at comics and discussing and reviewing comics,
yeah,
like we do on the show as well on there, so we can actually do a bit more, show them on the screen as well what we're talking about, which makes it a bit more interesting.
Flash bits up.
Flash? What?
The comics.
Okay, that's alright then.
No, I'm not flashing.
I don't think they allow that on YouTube.
No.
So that's coming. So if you search on YouTube House of Geek, you'll find us. Come up. It's a little house with a dice logo in. You'll see us there. We need to get 100 subscribers. We're not there yet.
No,
we're getting there.
because then we have the URL, you're saying?
Yeah, so please go and subscribe, and there will be comic stuff.
Yes.
On there.
We'll pop it out on this website, won't we?
Yeah, for the comic one.
To know when to nip over there.
But there's also plenty of other geeky stuff going to be on there over time. So
people don't need to have us too often in their lives.
They love us.
They don't want to look at us.
Don't you all? I don't know. I think I look pretty amazing.
It's the wiggle
on there. The wiggle.
I've
been abused. I've been abused about my wiggle on the video I've just done. I'm being animated, expressive.
You're being animated or shocked.
What do you mean shocked?
With electricity.
In regards to the competition, we didn't get many entries at all.
No.
So we're going to extend it for another month because we need some entries. So the idea was to name a character from a comic that would fit in the Walking Dead universe. Email us, tweet us, Facebook messages. I don't care.
You don't have to write an essay.
No, just an idea and a brief reason why. I don't know. Mickey Mouse, because his ears would flap away the zombies.
Wow.
That's why I'm never going to win stuff like this. So yeah, just something. Please get involved. There's two prints here.
The prints are amazing.
Dave McKean and Charlie Adler print.
You're going to have to hold them up
signed
on YouTube so people can see them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, we'll put the competition up on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Get involved. Please also let us know what you want to hear from the show.
Yes.
Any comics or magazines we should
that we should be looking at.
And looking at, yeah. If you're an artist, you want us to have a look at your comic, send it to us. We'll have a look.
Yep.
And we'll discuss it. And I haven't got a problem with that.
No.
We'll be honest, but we'll certainly look at it.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing.
You can bribe me in chocolate. It's fine.
The stuff that we are sort of reviewing now, we're buying.
Yes, we are.
So it is. You'll find the reviews are probably very positive because it's stuff that we're interested in and we want to look at. So
yeah,
I'm not going to buy stuff
that
I don't think I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah.
But if we get sent stuff out, we'll be honest with you. But generally, we're positive anyway, so it'll be worthwhile.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Other than that, have you got anything else you'd like to add?
No.
No?
No, fine, thanks.
Thank you very much for listening. Episode 3 will be out 1st of May.
Yes. Oh, yes, because this is the April Fool's one.
Oh dear. Follow us on Twitter at Comic Art Fest Pod.
Yep.
Facebook, Comic Arts Podcast.
I'm impressed you remember all these.
Website, comicartpodcast.uk.
They're all different.
And only because I can't get the thing on Twitter I want. And on YouTube, find us at House of Geek.
Yep.
Search for us there. I know it's confusing, but tough.
Stick with us.
Yes, stick with it. It will make sense overall. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a month.
Bye.
a set of wrestle with a cougar up and down my bed. She had a sharpened claws and a vicious bite. Oh, what a night! I woke up in the morning with my undies all torn. I felt humiliated, I felt reborn. My eyes didn't believe what they saw. Tame the beast! Tame the beast! Raw! Tame the beast! Tame the beast! Tame the beast! Raw! Tame the beast!
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at comicartfestpod and have a listen to our other show at houseofgeek.org.uk.